Hi, everybody. This is our third video in this short series on research methods in psychology. And today we're looking at naturalistic observation. Naturalistic observation is not an experiment. So the previous two videos we talked about experimentation. Now we're not talking about experiments specifically anymore. Naturalistic observation is a method where we observe events as they unfold in their natural environment. We just observe. So you've got this silly cartoon here. The researcher's missing something, right? He's interpreting what he's seeing here. 4 out of 5 birds prefer apples over windows. That's one way of interpreting what's happening here, right? So that's one of the problems with naturalistic observation. He's just watching, and this is how he's interpreting what's going on. So, some of the problems with naturalistic observation, observing things as they unfold, is the environment is uncontrolled. So, we don't know what we're seeing. We have some bias. And the fact that we're part of the environment affects the environment. So, I'm going to back up and go over these slowly. Let's say we want to study the mating habits of lions in nature. Or we want to study the mating habits of lions. Would we do that in the zoo? No, because we know that lions don't mate in the zoo, in captivity, pretty much. They have a hard time, right? And we wouldn't know how much the zoo is affecting their mating habits. So we would go to their natural environment, maybe the savannah, right? And we would observe them. And let's say we observe this pride of lions for 2 years. And they don't know that we're there. We have some magical spray that we can spray on ourselves, and they don't know that we're there. And we're recording every minute of their time, and they don't mate. They simply don't mate for 2 years. So what can we conclude from this? Well, we could conclude that lions don't mate, but we'd be wrong, right? We could conclude that lions only mate once every 3 years. We could come up with a whole lot of speculation, but we wouldn't know the reason that they're not mating. And that's partly because we didn't control the environment. So maybe Mr. Lion is eating elk that ate an herb that, kills Mr. Lion's libido. It's possible. It's just as possible as a whole lot of other explanations. The thing is, we don't know because we didn't control the environment. We're not feeding him whatever, we think. And we don't know exactly what we're seeing, right? We don't know exactly what's going on. All we have is what's in front of us. This little Peanuts cartoon here, so in the first frame he says, "Why are you always so anxious to criticize me?" And she says, "I just think I have a knack for seeing other people's faults." And he says, "What about your own faults?" And she says, "I have a knack for overlooking them." So you might think that she's a little biased, no? And I would agree. One of the problems with naturalistic observation is that we see what we want to see. So let's say you want to know if, so let me ask you this, does sugar make kids hyper? So I know that many of you are nodding, you're saying yes, it does. And actually, research repeatedly shows that it doesn't. It does not make kids hyper. But parents expect kids to be made hyper from sugar, and that's what they see. So whereas previously the kid running about would just be the kid running about, now when the kid runs about after having cake and ice cream, we're like, oh yeah, that's because of the cake and ice cream. We see what we want to see. We have bias. And part of that well, yeah, there are other problems with that, but we're going to see what we want to see. There's also the observer's effect. So let's say that I want to study the mating habits of humans, right? So I recruit some couples for my research, and I go with them to their natural habitat, which might be their bedroom if we're studying sex. So I go to their bedroom and I say to them, don't worry about me, folks. Just, have at it. I'm just going to sit here and take notes, and watch, right? Don't let me bother you. So that would be weird. And it would probably affect the results of your study. It would affect what you're seeing. You become a part of the environment and you influence it if you're going to be there, right? So you're not going to find out about normal, what their normal mating habits are. You're going to find out something else because you're present. Quick one on that. I heard on the radio, I heard on NPR that there was a study done where it was done at an airport in Switzerland, where they found out that people only wash their hands after using the restroom like 20% of the time, if nobody's watching. If people are watching, then they wash their hands like 70 to 80% of the time. Well, my first question was, how do they know? If nobody's watching, how do they know what people do when nobody's watching? And what this research tells us is, when people watch, people behave differently, right? So I don't know how they got these numbers. It's very interesting. I hope they didn't put cameras in the bathrooms, because I think that would be wrong. But you get my point. The observer's effect means that the observer, just observing, has an impact on the environment. So, of course, then we have the pros of naturalistic observation, and that's that, we can see things as they unfold naturally, and that's important to do. It's important to do. Okay, and that's it for naturalistic observation.